Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. My name is Mohd Nashriq bin Nizam from Department of Media and Communication Studies, Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, University of Malaya, Kuala Lumpur. I am very honored to be invited and joined in the third International Conference on Islam, Media and Communication, which focusing on the communication, media and its impact in the time of the crisis. Thank you, organizer. Lack of information about the world will cause citizens to fail to fulfill their responsibilities, and finally, democracy will be destroyed. The media influences the way people conceptualize themselves, and it became an important component in shaping their views or opinions. The media itself is considered as the backbone of the democracy and become a disciple of the system. Its complaint about the media tend to focus on implementation rather than assume that the media plays a vital role in democratic mechanisms. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, today my presentation will focusing on the mediatization approach towards media populism and the process of electoral democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, democracy requires the freedom of the people to access information through the media and are free to express their opinions. Maguire 1981 and Roger 1983 argue that media is a medium for well-planned, systematic, well-time consuming for a campaign and can identify target group segmentations specifically used to change opinions, trust value and attitude practice. In other words, the media is a channel or delivery agent that can influence the voters during the elections. According to Althusser 1971, the media is one form of the ideological state apparatus ISA in which the media move persuasively and slowly but with effect the society or community. Elected candidates that representative parties to contest in areas set or specified by the Malaysian Election Commission will take the opportunity to use the media as a medium to convey or deliver their ideologies or manifesto that could be beneficial to the voters or the people in their constituencies. Livingstone 2009 stated that mediatizations or mediations is a word derived from Germany, which is Mediatization, that brings the media to dominate or play a role in the system and institutions of society until social change occurs. The process of mediatization does not mean that the media system itself has been colonized and reached the political system of the nations, but rather the political system can be described as a medium of mediatization when mass media is the main channel for communications and the portrayal of reality delivered may impact for the public or society that view it. Ladies and gentlemen, some politicians manipulate the use of the media in the pursuit of their political agenda by deliberately using sentiments that can provoke voters' anger, frustration, fear, or frustrations toward the opposition and portray them as if they represent the oppressed. This can be classified as a populism. Populism also seen in various ways such as the personal leadership of political actors, social movement, and political parties. Ladies and gentlemen, the GE14 saw the rise of the media as an agent of populism in shaping the country's democratic election. GE14 has changed the pattern of the Malaysian media landscape where the Barisan Nasional, which has ruled for 61 years, has fallen to Pakatan Harapan. Ladies and gentlemen, this GE14 is a key state election in Sarawak under the new leadership of Sarawak during that period. Chief Minister Datuk Patinggi Dr. Abang Haji Abdul Rahman Zohari bin Tun Datuk Abang Haji Openg, who replaced the late Bin Sri Datuk Patinggi Tan Sri Dr. Haji Adnan bin Haji Satim on 30th January 2017. Besides, the state of Sarawak is said to be the stronghold of the BN, which has finally come to the terms with the people's power that has changed the GE14 landscape by simply winning 19 seats out of 31 parliamentary seats contested. Meanwhile, PH, represented by DAP and PKR, won 12 parliamentary seats. The slide shows the result of the contested seats in the Sarawak. Unlike in the last GE13, the Sarawak BN recorded a staggering victory by winning 25 seats out of 31 parliamentary seats. Ladies and gentlemen, Chin 2018 stated that the main aspect of the changes in the GE14 voting results and the Sarawak parliamentary seats is due to the local factor rather than national factor. The issue of the Malaysian Agreement 1963 and state nationalism, such as the Native Customary Right Lands (NCR land), were the main issues played by political parties in Sarawak during the GE14. Politicians in Sarawak are using the issues of the Malaysian Agreement in demanding the state rights enshrined in the Malaysia Agreement 1963 from the federal government. Malaysian political scene has been further rocked again with the issue of the government's transition to a new coalition known as the National Alliance or Perikatan Nasional, which includes parties such as the PBM, BN, PAS and Independent. The crisis began when the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, resigned and was replaced by. Although in reality, digital media scene more dominates with the time as technology changes compared with the traditional media, which is fully controlled by the ruling government. However, traditional media in Sarawak are still relevant as internet access in some areas, especially in the remote or rural areas, which are lacking and limited of internet sources. Due to this limitation, the use of the newspaper has been one of the main mediums of Sarawak voters or citizens seeking information throughout the electoral process and Malaysian politician situation. Ladies and gentlemen, the rise of the media populism has been on the Malaysian political stage with a host of the critical issues and sentiment intentions. This phenomenon brings to the existence of mediatizations. Therefore, this research aims to study and analyze the adaptations of the media logic and political logic which populism into the media contents of Sarawak's newspaper toward the electoral democracy during the GE14 and midterm transition of Malaysian government 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, the research question and hypothesis also need to be answered in this study. Ladies and gentlemen, the figure explains on how populism can influence the process of political mediatizations by affecting the use of the media against individuals or society and ultimately reaching a decision, especially during elections. This theoretical framework is well used by politicians as it provides a clear picture on how, why and when it can be adapted and disseminated through the media. In this research, as for mediatization of politics, researchers focus on two important aspects according to the Strombeck, which are media logic and political logic. As for media logic, there are four elements that have been used, which are conflict, emotionalizations, media pundit, and opinionated and narrative stories. While as for political logic, there are three elements that have been used, which are policy, politics, and polity. Apart from the mediatization, there are three aspects in the populism need to be focused in the study, such as anti-elitism, people-centrism, and mistrust of experts. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm using a quantitative method by conducting content analysis on how media is used by politicians or populists and what are news items or themes like the types of media use, issues, news sources, news objective, news directions in which commonly discussed during the GE14 and also midterm government transitions. I had developed a coding sheet which contained 8 parts and there are 88 variables in the coding sheets need to be analyzed. To test the validity and reliability, ladies and gentlemen, I'm using an intercodal reliability test by Hosty 1969. There are two coders conducted the test. Therefore, it shows that the value of the validity and reliability in the coded test of the newspaper sample chosen to be analyzed are more than the significance of 0.70 or 70% of the validity and reliability. As for the research finding, ladies and gentlemen, figure shows the percentage of the news coverage for 7 newspapers in Sarawak. Ladies and gentlemen, the finding reveals that the result of the percentage of the types of articles and news objective. This study also had proof that there were a political actor, either individual or political parties, has been mentioned in the news. Result shows the summary for the frequency of news saliency in the newspaper, as what we can conclude that all newspapers had government response compared with the opposition for GE14 and midterm transition of Malaysia government 2020 in Sarawak. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to direct the news to give a particular perception and interpretation of the news, I'm using news direction in this research. There are three types of news direction, which are positive, negative, and neutral on the issue, which can create the understanding or opinion from the readers based on aspects such as the news headline, government and opposition initiation, government and opposition response, and blame attributions onto governments and oppositions. Chi-square test has been used in this research for news direction to prove the hypothesis whether there is a significant relationship between the newspaper with the news direction, and either we can need to reject or accept the hypothesis of the study. Based on the result, only news headlines, government initiation, government response, government substance of blame, and government non-policy blame are significant at the 0.001 level, p-value less than 0.05. Therefore, the hypotheses for this aspect are accepted and we reject the null hypothesis. As for the rest, the hypothesis for this aspect is not accepted and we do accept not the null hypothesis. To answer the research question and hypothesis of the study, this research also analyzed between newspaper and mediatization of politics. As mentioned before in the previous slides, each element or aspect contains a subheading. I had identified 5 issues under the subheading Media Logic, which are violent crime, social conflict, war and terrorist act, political contestation, and negative issue. The assumption that we need to check here is whether there is a significance between the news coverage in the newspaper with the media logic. Therefore, this will be done by checking through the one-way ANOVA test as shown in the table. Based on the result, all issues for subheading conflict have a significant result which in the p-value is less than 0.05. Then only the issues on war and terrorist act have more than 0.05 for p-value. Ladies and gentlemen, I had identified 2 issues under the subheading Media Logic of emotionalizations, which are positive emotions and negative emotions. Based on the one-way ANOVA test, all 2 issues have a significant result, which is the p-value is less than 0.05. Based on the result, we can conclude that there is a statistically significant difference between the issues with the news coverage in the newspaper. I had examined 2 issues under the subheading Media Logic of Media Pundit, which are a political statement and public statement. Based on the result of one-way ANOVA, all 2 issues for the subheading have a significant result, which is the p-value is less than 0.05. Therefore, this study had proved that there is a statistically significant difference between the Media Pundit with the news coverage. Ladies and gentlemen, this study also analyzed issues under the subheading Media Logic of opinionated and narrative stories, which are straight news, narrative news, opinionated news, and interview news. Based on one-way ANOVA test, only 1 issue has more than 0.05 for p-value, whereas 3 issues for this subheading are significant, with a total p-value is less than 0.05. For political logic, there are 3 subheadings and it covers a few issues that need to be analyzed, such as policy, politics, and polity. As for policy aspects, ladies and gentlemen, one-way ANOVA test result prove that all issues on this subheading have a significant result, which is the p-value is less than 0.05. We can conclude that there is a statistically significant difference between the issues with the news coverage in the newspaper. This study had analyzed under the subheading politics aspects such as political actors and political strategies. Based on the one-way ANOVA test result, all issues of this subheading have a significant result, which is the p-value is less than 0.05. Therefore, there is a statistically significant difference between issues on subheading political aspects with the news coverage in the newspaper. Ladies and gentlemen, I also have proof that 2 issues under the subheading polity aspect, such as political process or structure and limitation on power of political actor. Based on the one-way ANOVA test, all issues on this subheading have a significant result, which is the p-value is less than 0.05. As a result, there is a statistically significant difference between issues on the subheading polity aspect with new coverage of the newspaper. Besides mediatization of politics, ladies and gentlemen, I also examined element or aspect under populism. Populism contains 3 subheadings and it covers a few issues that need to be analyzed, such as anti-elitism, people-centrism, and mistrust of experts. As for anti-elitism, I has identified 3 issues under the subheading anti-elitism, which are discrediting the elite, blaming the elite, and detaching the elite from the people. Based on the result, 2 issues for the subheading anti-elitism have a significant result, which is the p-value is less than 0.05. However, only 1 issue has more than 0.05 for p-value. This study also analyzed the issues under the subheading of people-centrism, such as stressing the people's virtues, praising the people's achievement, stating a monolithic people, and demonstrating closeness to the people. Based on one-way ANOVA test, all issues for subheading people-centrism have a significant result, which is the p-value is less than 0.05. Based on that, we can conclude that there is a statistically significant difference between the issues with the news coverage in the newspaper. Ladies and gentlemen, this study analyzed the subheading of mistrust of experts. Based on the one-way ANOVA result, the issue have a significant result, which is the p-value is less than 0.05. We can conclude that there is a statistically significant difference between the issues with the news coverage in the newspaper. Ladies and gentlemen, to summarize my research finding, the relationship between the newspaper and the political system in Malaysia, especially in Sarawak, needs to be studied, as the influence of the media on society is so significant and has its own power. The media is considered to be a socializing agent that is also used to help various parties achieve certain goals. Through the mediatization of politics and media populism approach, it shows that the competing political parties will make full use of the media, especially the newspaper, as a means of campaigning, and thus influence the electorate and change the voting pattern. This is because voters are more likely to access the media to find out about their political candidates' campaigns along with their promises or manifestos, especially in Sarawak. Ladies and gentlemen, therefore, I end my presentation. Wear face mask, comply with all SOP, stay safe, and let's support national COVID-19 vaccination programs. Lindung diri, lindung semua. Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera.